Yes. But let's make it official. Welcome to the Pandemic Pinup Happy Hour. Today we are going to dive into a class I'm calling Spring Fever. Mainly because I like puns and sometimes get really cheesy with things. Not usually with cocktails, but with other things in my life. But today we are doing cocktails that are kind of just built around different ingredients that are seasonal within the season of spring. If you are unfamiliar with what's seasonal in your area, please take some time, whether it's today or in the future, to just kind of research that. You can Google your city or your state and see what produce is seasonal. Sometimes if you are a person that attends the farmers market quite often, you'll be able to get kind of a good idea of what's seasonal because the farmers are going to be harvesting whatever is in season. And it's just a really interesting practice to consume things that are within season because usually that's when they're at their peak. And we are used to getting certain things year round because we can import them from a lot of different places in the world. So if you're able to focus on locally sourced seasonal ingredients, I promise you your food and your cocktails will be that much more rich, that much more flavorful, and that much brighter. So I thought we'd do a little bit of that today with these cocktails. And honestly, I just made all of these because I thought that they were very fun. They're very, very tasty. I am so thrilled with how all three of these turned out. I know sometimes I present things and I'm like, oh, this one's okay, but I'm still working on it. Or this one's good, but not necessarily everybody's cup of tea. I think all of these cocktails are bangers. So I would like to talk first about some of the prep that was put out on the list for this week. Sometimes we do things that are just super simple, not a whole lot of prep involved. Sometimes I have people infuse spirits or make syrups. So this week we have a rhubarb infused tequila that hopefully some people have made so that they can try this at home. And we have something I'm calling garden vodka. And I'm calling it that because there is a non alcoholic spirit called Seedlip that has a few different products on the market that are for people who enjoy non alcoholic cocktails, also sometimes called mocktails. And I thought their flavor profiles were very interesting. However, I definitely imbibe, and I wanted to kind of take some of those flavor profiles and put them into a cocktail that actually had alcohol. So that's where the inspiration of the ingredients in the garden vodka came from. It's also kind of the inspiration for the name of the cocktail that it is used in. But our garden vodka is infused, drum roll, with sweet peas. And I know that sounds absolutely insane, but it is infused with sweet peas. And I've done two tests because someone asked me if they could use frozen peas. And the answer is yes. Will it taste the same? The answer is no. So fresh sweet peas will actually make your vodka like really noticeably sweet and it's very pleasant. The frozen peas don't add the sweetness. They do add the vegetal notes that you expect from peas, and it's still very nice. But the sweetness from the fresh peas was just something I was not even prepared for. I was just hoping it would kind of turn out. And then it has the sweet peas. It also has some mint, some thyme, and some rosemary, just to kind of bring in some herbal notes and just kind of make it feel more gardening. And then the other ingredient that we have prepared for today is something called barley water. And that's going to actually be my segue into our first cocktail called Mr. Robinson. And it is not a song reference, even though it would be a fantastic one. But Mr. Robinson is the person who founded a company that creates barley water, which is actually a springtime slash summertime beverage consumed primarily in England. And the way we can go and get like Snapples and sodas at our like gas stations and grocery stores just to pop open and drink, there are different variations of barley water that you can just buy in stores in England. And when made on its own, that's what I'm looking for. When made at home, it's really tasty. I've honestly never tried the bot version, so I don't know how it compares. But I did test a couple recipes. Really liked the one that I put out on the prep sheet. But it is literally barley boiled in water. And then you add a little bit of lemon, you add a little lemon juice, a little lemon zest, and a little honey to sweeten it. But it's really not actually very, very sweet. It's just lightly sweet. But it reminded me a lot of different grain based, non alcoholic beverages that I've had in Latin American countries. So when I tasted it, I created this cocktail that we are calling Mr. Robinson in tribute to the man who actually put barley water on the market. So for the Mr. Robinson cocktail, we will be doing a procedure that's, I guess, a little counterintuitive because most people think you shake cocktails, you stir cocktails, and then sometimes you build cocktails, which means you do it in a glass. And most of the time, you shake something that has juice, you stir something in a mixing glass that is all alcohol ingredients, and then you perhaps build something in a glass that you don't want a bunch of dilution in the beginning. But we're kind of doing all of these techniques today. We're going to be muddling, but instead of using a mixing glass, I'm going to actually do it in the glass. And then we're going to shake part of the cocktail and then pour it in. So we're building, muddling, shaking, all the nonsense. Chandler can't make anything easy. So for this cocktail, what we're going to do is prepare a shaker and prepare a glass. So to prepare our glass, I'm going to pop in 2 strawberries is what I would recommend. However, I have one really massive strawberry. I don't know what they're feeding the strawberries locally in my market, but they're massive. So I'm only using one. If you have regular shaped size strawberries, use 2. And then I am going to take some gin. So I'm going to take an ounce and a half of the gin, and I'm actually going to put this directly into the glass. So just pour it over the strawberry, put that in there, and that's going to be what I'm muddling the strawberry into. So I'm gonna give it a few like presses, just smush it around like 3 or 4 times. Maybe like this. And then I'm going to measure out, let's see this lemon juice. We're gonna do a half ounce of lemon juice. Put that in there. And then I'm gonna do an ounce and a half of barley water. Actually. Now, if you've followed the barley water recipe that I sent out, the reason I'm just adding the extra lemon is because I really wanted this to be bright and refreshing. I wanted it to be something you can imagine yourself sipping while you're sitting outside reading a book or maybe doing some bird watching on your porch. I didn't want it to be overly sweet. Now, if you find these ratios to be a little too tart for your particular palate, or maybe your strawberries are really tart because they're not super ripe, or maybe your strawberries are super sweet, you can add in a little extra honey, either to your barley water or to your shaker. And if you don't have that, you could just use a simple syrup. You could use an agave, a maple. But I thought the honey went really, really nicely with all of these ingredients. So now I'm going to add some ice to this so I can cook it. That's some pebble ice, guys. Pebble ice is back. To be clear, I'm not shaking with pebble ice. I'm shaking with regular ice. If you're new to the pandemic and a happy hour, I am here to tell you that I have a problem. I love pebble ice probably too much to the point of where I considered getting a pebble ice machine just for my countertop to make me happy. I like to crunch on it. It makes me very happy inside. But you can buy pebble ice at your local Sonic. Sometimes buy the bag. Today I have restrained myself to not buy a 10-pound bag. I just bought a cup of ice. But I'm going to be using that for this cocktail. You can use any ice you have. But once you have your ingredients in the shaker, you're going to give it a little shake. Don't have to be anything too crazy. And you might be asking, why don't I just put the gin in here? You could do that too. Honestly, it didn't change the flavor all that much. I just find that sometimes muddling things with a little bit of the alcohol tends to extract some of the flavors a little bit better. So in the interest of just getting all of that juicy freshness out of the strawberry, I wanted to muddle that into the gin. So I'm gonna put in some like, no one here to stop. I'm just gonna strain my lemon barley water into. Oh, it's like super pretty, red on the bottom, brightens up into like a light yellow. That's just garnish it, super simple. Wage, but that is the Mr. Robinson. And if you are super into sports, although this would probably be an odd one for someone to be like highly into, I don't feel like it's as popular. But this is barley water is one of the traditional beverages served at Wimbledon. So if you watch the thing that I can't think of the name of now, making me look less smart than I am. The match that they do at the Wimbledon, make yourself one of these, watch it on TV, and pretend you're in London. I don't know, drink a couple of them, see if it gives you a funny little accent. But this is the Mr. Wimbledon. And moving on to my next cocktail, I'm also super excited about this one. I love rhubarb. I don't know why more people don't know about rhubarb. I don't know when rhubarb stopped being a thing, but I think it's sad. I grew up eating rhubarb cream pie. And when I say that, some people just freak out. But the rhubarb cream pie that I grew up eating, the cream or the custard base was actually, it actually included a little bit of sour cream. So that tartness really played well with the strawberries and the rhubarb. And it was just one of my absolute favorite summer pies. And I'm kind of picky about my fruit pies, guys. But I love the combination of strawberry and rhubarb. And I'm also in love with fashionola syrup that a friend of mine makes at a company called Cocktail and Sons, which I feature quite often on the show, not because I'm sponsored, but because it's really tasty. Like, it's that simple. If I'm using something, it's because I like it. It's not because anyone else is paying me, which is kind of why I like doing these classes, because I don't have to have any kind of bias. I can just be honest whether or not I like something. And Fashionola is kind of addicting and also kind of upsetting because they make a lot and a lot of people like it and it sells out quite quickly. So the Fashionola syrup that they make, their description is a tropical fruit syrup with hibiscus flowers and Louisiana strawberries. And the strawberries and the hibiscus come through in such a big way in the flavor profile. And it is just such a gorgeous shade of red. It's like the deepest strawberry red you've ever seen. So I wanted to create a cocktail that really showcased rhubarb and strawberries. And I thought of Fashionola and I was immediately just so excited. So for this cocktail, you will also need a shaker. And we will be using 1.5 ounces of our rhubarb tequila. Or I think about what I infused this into for a minute. Did a lot of infusions over the last week. But it's also just this really pretty pink color. So if you're just into like tequila shots, I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty tasty on its own because it's almost like it has the perfect amount of tart for those people who like to chase their tequila with a lime. And it's just a gorgeous color, just absolutely beautiful. So we're going to use an ounce and a half of our rhubarb infused silver tequila. I will drive that home. Most people know that I'm really into aged tequilas. I'm also a huge whiskey fan, so that's probably why I favor aged spirits more. But for this, I really did want to get a really nice, clean, crisp rhubarb flavor without any of the nuances that come through in an aged spirit. So that's why I went with silver. So we have our ounce and a half of that. And then we're going to use a 1/4 ounce of lime. We're going to use a 1/4 ounce of grapefruit. And I'm using ruby red grapefruit. If you like your cocktails a little more tart, feel free to use a white grapefruit juice. And a 1/4 ounce of fashionola. And I know it sounds like I love this and then I'm using very little of it, but trust me, it's to keep it balanced. I want all the flavors to shine. I could probably drink this if I was an absolute psychopath, just on its own. It's really, really good. But we're only going to use a 1/4 ounce in this cocktail, which means I have a ton more fashionola to make more of these cocktails. All right. And then the kicker, I'm adding in a bar spoon's worth of yellow chartreuse. Now, yellow chartreuse in general, is a rather expensive spirit. Would I say that my cocktail justifies buying an entire bottle of chartreuse? Probably not. I have one. We'll probably use a lot of it making this cocktail because I really enjoyed it in here. But the amount is minimal. I did play around with some other possibilities. If you didn't have yellow chartreuse, I'm using it because it has a really light honey note to it, some saffron, and some herbalness to it. So if you had herbal bitters and you put a pinch of saffron in your herbal bitters to really extract those flavors, and then just a dash of honey, you could get some of the nuances that I'm looking for, but they definitely won't be as refined tasting, and the flavor will change noticeably. So if you don't want to shell out for the chartreuse, talk to me. I'll come up with a secondary variation of this for you, just for you. But if you do have it, want to shell out for it, love it. I've also made other cocktails that include yellow chartreuse. I don't feel like it gets enough play in the barbell. Let me know, and then I can send you those recipes. So I'm only using a bar spoon's worth, putting that in there, and then get some ice, shake. I'm gonna take it for about 15 seconds. All right. So now, if and only you have a coupe or a small Nick and Nora glass, Nick and Nora glasses usually look something like this. You cannot see them. Over here. They're just like cuter, tinier coupes, I guess, is a good way to say that. I would recommend straining it up into that glass, which means without ice. I am straining it into this weird little glass I have that's like slanted but cute. I just thought it was a nice little presentation. Again, no ice. Just straining it directly into my glass. It'll be this nice little rosy pink color. And this is kind of what I would like to call a nipper. It's definitely a cocktail that you can get through really quickly, but it's got a good amount of alcohol to it. It's a good way to open up your appetite and just really get anybody excited about what the afternoon is going to bring or what dinner is on the menu. But it is dangerous just because it's very easy to drink, but it does pack a punch. So I'm going to garnish that with a grapefruit peel. And I'm calling this spring in the Bayou. Um, just because I couldn't think of a better name. I thought that was actually kind of cute. So these guys, it's spring in the Bayou. And for the pièce de résistance, the pea cocktail. We're going to stop referring to it as the pea cocktail, though. Formerly, this cocktail is known as the Hare. And I thought this was a good name because the seedlet bottle that inspired me to make this has a hare on it as part of the design for that particular bottle. And also, there's something called the March Hare, and I was like, oh, that sounds seasonal. And then I just ran with it. So it's called the Hare, Hare, not Har. And I am going to walk you through, it's a 3 ingredient cocktail, but I wanted to talk to you about 2 of the other ingredients outside of the garden vodka. We will be using yuzu juice, which I realize not everyone has it. Feel free to substitute with lemon. However, I really would encourage you if you just want to like splurge on yourself and be a little wild and you're really willing to try this cocktail and go through the effort of infusing that vodka, then please buy yuzu juice. You can get a tiny little bottle. It is a little pricier than your other citrus juices. I think this cost me like $6 or $7 on Amazon. Some Asian stores carry it if you're lucky enough to live next to a really good one that supplies it. It is different. I usually would tell you that you can just swap it out equally for lemon, but usually in cocktails where I would recommend that or say that it's okay, a lot of other ingredients come into play. This being a very simple cocktail, it really has 3 things that shine independently but also together. And once we start to make those swaps, it's essentially a different cocktail. So we have the garden vodka, we have the yuzu juice, and then we have one of my favorite drinking toys. There's a soda that they make in Asia. A lot of places in Japan and Korea distribute it, but it is called Ramune soda. I'll show that to you guys. And they make a bunch of different flavors. There's a couple of different brands of this style of soda. But this is so fun. I'm going to show y'all how or why in a minute. But the original flavor that they have is kind of hard to describe to people who haven't had sodas from other countries. We are used to Coke and root beer and Sprite, Mountain Dew, and those kind of flavors. But if you can imagine just a plain tasting soda, such as club soda, but it's lightly sweet, that's what this is. It doesn't have any actual flavors, so just think of it as like a lightly sweet carbonation. And I'm fascinated with just lightly sweetened plain carbonates. They use them a lot in Spain to cut wines in the summer. So you will find calimochos or white calimochos where they'll take half white wine and half of a soda such as this, and they put it on ice and it makes it a longer sipper, makes it nice and refreshing. The bubbles add a like effervescence to it that's just really nice. But these are really neat. They do make them in all kinds of flavors, including like very Asian related flavors, such as like yuzu or ume, but you'll also find like honeydew melon and peach and things that are more geared towards an American palate. But this has always been my favorite, just like the regular standard lightly sweet carbonate. So to make this cocktail, you will need a shaker. And you will be using 2 full ounces of our garden vodka. That right in my favorite. We're only using a quarter ounce of yuzu. So I'm hoping that really drives home the point of she is small, but she is mighty. The yuzu is just really key, but even though it's just a little bit, it's absolutely worth the tiny splurge, especially if you're going to go ahead and infuse the spirit. Like, if you're going to do the work, go ahead and go the extra mile. Quarter ounce of yuzu. That's all we're putting in our shaker. Little PSA, please never shake any type of carbonated beverage in your shaker tin or any other device for that matter. It creates more pressure and it will cause your shaker to want to separate or open or explode. And you can either end up with a really large mess or hopefully only minor injuries, but you could end up hurting yourself. So never put club soda or Coke or Ramune soda in your shaker. None of those things. You always add those afterwards. So we're going to add a little ice. And we're going to keep this one for about 10 to 15 seconds. Great. Now love this survey, guys. It's so cool. So I'm going to come up close to the screen just a second so I can see you. But when you buy the soda, this lid is like attached with a little like plastic seal. You undo the seal and this just comes off. What is this, you might ask? Put your thumb through the top of it. And then it becomes this like tiny little plug, I guess is a good description for it. Now, these sodas are sealed with a marble. They kind of carbonate once you open them, and the marble drops into the soda. Can't come out. Trust me, I've tried. I was really excited. I thought I could keep it like a keepsake, like, oh, my first little Japanese marble. But no, that is not how it works. But you basically take the plug and you position it over the marble. You give it a smack. Oh, gosh, of course this one is going to work on camera. There we go. All right. Or you push really hard. Yeah, it sinks in. You can see the carbonation here. The little marble, pinky pink, and then you pull this out and soap pours out. Cool. I promise they're not usually that difficult to open. It was probably just me being me. Yes, I'm gonna splash. I'd say about a 3/4 ounce to an ounce. It's gonna be definitely up to you guys. I'm gonna go full ounce because I love it. You can also always top it off later in the glass. But now I'm gonna go ahead and strain this into my little Micanora glass. And the chef in me was so excited when I went to get the herbs to infuse this particular garden vodka. And I love thyme. It's one of my absolute favorite herbs, probably on the same page or if not just below sage. But it's not often I get to find it in a store where it's flowering. I used to love to do that on my plants, but I haven't found them. And I love it because thyme flowers are this really pale gold. They're super pretty. So I'm going to use a flowering sprig of thyme as my garnish. And that, guys, is the Hare. Right. Those are our drinks for today. That is hopefully giving you a little spring fever or some spring inspiration. Go out to your farmer's market, go to your stores, ask around, do your research, find out what's local, find out what's seasonal, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes people have trouble combining flavors and wondering what goes with it, what goes with this. And usually there's a saying in the industry that what grows together goes together. So that means a couple things. It can mean if it grows within the same area, if you think about like Hispanic food, a lot of Latin countries have a lot of the ingredients that they consume growing there. So like beans go really well with the spices that they use, such as cumin and paprika. It goes really well with like all the different kinds of vegetables that they have, like chayotes and ayotes and popotes, just like a ton of otes. Let's just say those. A lot of otes. They go really well together. But what it also means is seasonally what grows together goes together. So a lot of things that grow within the same season have a similar flavor profile, whether that's rich, dark, bright, sweet, tart. And those things pair really well together or also are able to contrast really nicely. So once you do that research, if you find any questions that you have, please feel free to reach out. And just know that I am passing on my spring fever to you. I'm hoping it is highly contagious. And we will soon be getting into April. For the month of April, we will actually be doing only 3 classes, not the 4. I will be in Tennessee for 1 weekend in April. So I'm sorry I will suspend class. But please continue to make drinks. We've got some really interesting topics coming up. We have brunch cocktails first and foremost in April because I forgot that I misscheduled it in March, which is what we're in now. So that class will be the first class of April, and I'm kind of deciding what the other ones would be. I have a lot of cocktails I've been working on. So I haven't really decided if the other classes will be savory cocktails, sochu or sake-based cocktails. There's some coffee and tea-based cocktails. So if you have something you want to see immediately, be sure to send me a message. Maybe you will sway my internal vote, and that will end up on next month's agenda. But until next Sunday, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, experiment. And if you don't make any of my cocktails, I just hope you enjoy what you're drinking and have a nice day. Thanks. Until next time. Goodbye, virtual world. We're going to stay in the Zoom and hang out. Sorry you can't be here. It's going to be nice. Have a wonderful Sunday.